Great to see everybody here. It's a lot of old friends that I haven't seen for a long time. So just, great to see Vladimir and Wisla and Jerry Brown, Jeff Curry. It's just wonderful to have everybody here. So thanks everybody for joining us. I do really appreciate how much you've given to Arctic science over the years. And I want to note that we're presenting a draft plan today, and we're asking for your opinions, your input, your guidance here. So this is an opportunity to provide direction to how this plan develops and unfolds. So today's speakers are Nikush Carlo. She's our Plan Development Director, and she's the CEO of CEN North Consulting. And Meredith LaValle, she's our project analyst for IARPC. And Sally McFarland, who's a program manager with the Atmospheric Radiation Measurement User Facility in the Department of Energy. And me, I'm Larry Hinsman. I'm the Executive Director of IARPC and the Assistant Director of Polar Sciences in the Office of Science and Technology Policy in the White House. So today we're going to tell you a little bit about IARPC and give you an overview of the draft plan. With today's specific focus is on the implementation. And so this is where we really need your input, your guidance, your thoughts. We're going to start out first and just tell you a little bit about why this is important to us. And I noted actually all the collaborators. I see Mike Rollins is here too. I've noticed all the collaborators that I've worked with over the years, and that's one of the things I really love about Arctic research is it's such a collaborative community. I don't think there's another research community that exists that's quite as collaborative as Arctic science, in that we all benefit by working with each other, and sharing our ideas, sharing our thoughts, sharing our resources, our data, our platforms. And so those collaborations advance the science and advance it for everybody, particularly on a national scale, but also internationally. So this is really important. This plan will direct federal research, federal investments in the next 5 years. It's primarily on a 2-year plan, and we're going to reevaluate after 2 years to narrow in and decide where to go. But that's what this implementation webinar is going to tell us about. Anyway, I'm so happy to be involved in this, and I'm so happy that we've got expert guidance to help us move this along. And maybe right now I'll ask Nikush to jump in and share a few of her thoughts.
Thanks, Larry. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Nikush Carlo. I am Claycon Athabascan, born and raised in the interior region of Alaska, from the city of Fairbanks and the village of Tamna, which is on the confluence of the Tamna and the Yukon rivers. The Arctic is important to me, not just because it's my home, but because more broadly of the people who live in the Arctic, across the Arctic, and people who work across the Arctic. Because the one thing that I've seen time and time again is that people really care, and people really want to work together. And I've seen that desire and the results of that cooperation at the international level and the Arctic Council and at every level in between. So I really believe that we can do great things by working together. And this is absolutely essential for us to live in balance with the environment far into the future.
Thanks, Nikush. Sally, do you want to share some thoughts?
Sure. Thank you, Larry. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Sally McFarland. I'm a program manager at the Department of Energy, where I manage a facility that's focused on observing the atmosphere to better understand atmospheric processes that are important to climate. And I'm really inspired by the way we can observe the world around us and use those observations to really understand the way the world, the Earth, the Arctic system, all those pieces interact together. So I'm really excited about observations. And I was born in South Carolina, which is about as far from Alaska as you can get, but I've had the luck to be able to travel to Alaska and see some of our observational sites and just see the beauty that is there in the Arctic. And so I'm just want us all to work together to continue to understand the Arctic region. Thank you.
Super, thanks, Sally. Can we go to the next slide, please? I just see Igor Apple's also online, so we're going to have a great discussion today. I'm looking forward to this. So IARPC is the Interagency Arctic Research Policy Committee. And what we do is we bring together federal agencies to coordinate and collaborate in Arctic research. And the purpose is, was defined in the Arctic Research Policy Act of 1984 to reduce duplication of efforts and enhance the value that comes out of collaborations. So we are organized into several levels of staff and participants. The top level is our principals, and these include one policy level member from each of the 14 federal agencies shown here that are responsible for U.S. investments in research in the Arctic. We also have representatives from the White House Office of Science Technology Policy and from the Office of Management and Budget. The IARPC principals meet annually and provide advice and direction. And they also develop the 5-year Arctic Research Plan, at least direct it, and that's what we're doing now. And they sometimes direct agency staff and IARPC Secretariat to address particular issues. Next slide, please. So this is a schematic of the current Arctic Research Plan that federal researchers have been operating on for the last 5 years. So this plan is created in consultation with the U.S. Arctic Research Commission and the governments of the state of Alaska and residents of the Arctic and the private sector and public interest groups. So this plan identifies critical areas where U.S. Arctic research supports U.S. policy, and that's from the community to global scales, and looks for areas where federal investments can be enhanced through interagency collaboration. The plan aims to advance knowledge and decision support for the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. It's implemented in part through the IARPC Collaborations website, of which I hope you are all members, but if not, maybe Liz can put that link in there and you can become a member. The Arctic Research Plan focuses on research that can be enhanced through cooperation between the federal agencies. And these plans, there's no way we can attempt to address all Arctic research, even all the Arctic research that's done on federal agencies. So we just focus on areas where there's great value through collaboration and cooperation. So this current Arctic Research Plan, which is shown on the schematic, was released in December of 2016 and focused on the fiscal years of 2017 to 2021. And this current plan, the draft plan that's under development now, the one that we're working on, is hopefully will be released in December of this year and will be in operation from 2022 through 2026. Next slide, please. So the current and future Arctic research plans also incorporate the principles for conducting research in the Arctic. And researchers working in the Arctic have a responsibility to respect local and indigenous cultures, knowledge, and advance stewardship of the Arctic environment. The core principles are here, but they are, as you can see, be accountable, establish effective communication, respect indigenous knowledge and culture, build and sustain relationships, and pursue responsible environmental stewardship. Next, please, Liz. So this is our basic timeline. And we are currently in the second public review phase of the plan development. See the second column from the right. This phase will last until the public comment period closes on June 11th. So we've got about 10 days before the Federal Register notice closes, before the public comment period ends. So we hope you will comment, read the plan and comment before then. So a federal steering group was organized an initial public scoping comment period that began in April of last year, 2020, and closed with a community workshop in September of last year. And then starting in November, federal drafting teams have been working with the information that was provided through that solicitation to create the draft plan. And we could not have done it without the input from the Arctic research community. So thank you for everyone who has provided input so far. Looking ahead, after the public comment period closes on June 11th, IARPC will review and consider all the input received and revise the plan as necessary. And like I mentioned, we're aiming for the release by the end of 2021. Next, please, Liz. So at this point, I think I will turn it over to Nikush. Nikush?
Thanks, Larry. So this illustration shows the three main components of the Arctic Research Plan. the one we've been talking about. It has policy drivers, priority areas, and foundational activities. And you may have noticed that the plan's structure and approach is really quite different from previous plans. And yet, the priority areas, which are new, and the foundational activities, which are new, are highly matrixed. So they interact sort of with each other and build from a lot of the good work and collaboration teams and research efforts that have been ongoing in IARPC for the last 10 plus years. So at the top of this graphic, you'll see the policy drivers. These are the same policy drivers that are in the current plan. And really, over the last 50 years, national interests and objectives in the US Arctic have remained remarkably stable, and that's what's reflected here. So these are really good foundation that are grounded in history and still applicable to current national efforts. So the policy drivers are well-being, focused on enhancing the wellness of Arctic residents with an emphasis on cultural vibrancy, economic development, mental and psychological health. Stewardship, advancing responsible management of the Arctic environment with an emphasis on globally driven changes. Security, strengthening national and regional safety, as well as risk management and emergency preparedness. Arctic Global Systems is the fourth policy driver, and that's focused on improving understanding of the Arctic as a component of planet Earth. Below the policy drivers in red, you'll see the 4 priority areas. And each priority area identifies a broad and interdisciplinary cross-cutting goal that is driven and connected to the policy drivers. These priority areas are community resilience and health, Arctic systems interaction, sustainable economies and livelihoods, risk management, and hazard mitigation. And as I mentioned, this priority area format is a significant shift from previous plans. Priority areas are designed to respond to research challenges that were identified by Arctic communities, by federal agencies with a presence in Alaska, by federal agencies with Arctic investments, by the state of Alaska, and other non-federal partners. So keep in mind, as Larry mentioned this, but a good thing to keep in mind is that this plan does not cover everything that is happening or all the research that is conducted related to Arctic. It focuses on those areas that are priority for interagency collaboration and partnerships that will really increase the value of federal research investment in the Arctic. Let's go to the bottom part of the graph, what's in blue. These are the 5 foundational activities. These activities relate to, they support, they sort of feed into the priority areas. And we think of these as critical processes, guiding the federal government's approach to Arctic research and improving research and collaboration, specifically within the priority areas. But there's also the intention here that these foundational activities will be more long-term. They will live beyond the 5-year timeframe of any individual Arctic research plan. So really quickly, the foundational activities are co-production of knowledge and Indigenous-led research, data management, education, monitoring, observing, modeling, and prediction, technology, innovation, and application. So both the priority areas and foundational activities will require and definitely benefit from the existing IARPC teams that are represented by the collaboration logo in the middle of the graphic. So that iceberg graphic in the middle is the collaborations logo, which you'll recognize from the website and other places. So represents bringing everything sort of together in that sphere. Okay, next slide, and over to Sally.
Thank you, Nakush. So I'm going to focus a little bit on implementation of the research plan. So I'm a member of the implementation planning committee. And the research plan, the new research plan that we've discussed so far also provides some high-level implementation guidance to IARPC and measures of success by which IARPC will hold itself accountable, but it doesn't provide a really detailed implementation plan. Instead, this research plan is going to be implemented through biennial implementation plans that will be developed every 2 years, and which will aim to align federal resources and leverage partnerships with non-federal entities. So as has been discussed so far, the plan will be implemented by 4 new priority area teams. And these teams, like the current collaboration teams, will be open to all interested parties that want to participate in these priority areas. So these priority area teams will direct and coordinate the activities to reach the plan goals. And they will also help ensure that resources are coordinated and that partners, that we develop partners and collaborations to address the pressing needs. So next slide, please. So this little diagram is just showing a sample structure of how the priority area teams will look under the new Arctic Research Plan. So priority area teams will be made up of federal agency representatives, external partners, and existing and new collaboration and foundational activity teams. So for example, priority area 1, which is community resilience and health, you might imagine the current health and well-being and atmosphere collaboration teams might work together with federal agency partners such as the National Institutes of Health and the US Forest Service, and external partners on issues of wildfire smoke and its impact on health and community well-being. So one of the things we want to emphasize is that the new research plan and the priority areas are building on the strong foundation set by the collaboration teams during the past 5-year plan. So this is not meant to be a hierarchical, I can't say that, a hierarchical structure, but one in which the collaboration teams work together, both pursuing their own objectives in their disciplinary areas, as well as coordinating and collaborating with the more interdisciplinary priority area teams. So we expect that the existing collaboration teams will coordinate and collaborate closely with the priority area teams, but also will continue to be vital communities of practice in their own disciplinary areas. Collaboration teams will be instrumental in implementing the new Arctic research plans, as well as pursuing other lines of inquiry and actions that they choose. So this graphic is just meant to be illustrative. So it shows one collaboration team and one foundational activity contributing to this priority area. But in general, we expect that there will likely be multiple collaboration teams contributing to a priority area, and a collaboration team may contribute to multiple priority areas. Next slide. So this is a preliminary diagram that shows a timeline of the process that we're proposing for development of the biennial implementation plan. So at the beginning of the timeline, you see the purple sections, and they stretch from summer 2021, so where we are now, to September of 2022. And throughout this time, IARPC is going to work to solicit and incorporate input from both inside and outside the federal government to develop the biennial implementation plans. So as Larry mentioned, the Arctic Research Plan is expected to be released in December of 2021, after all of the input from the Federal Register notice has been taken into account. After that revised plan is released, IARPC plans to hold public workshops to solicit input from the community on high priority lines of effort to implement the research plan. Additionally, we will hold federal only workshops to align the objectives and deliverables with federal efforts. So we expect to have a set of both public workshops and federal only workshops. Then taking all of that input into account, the biennial implementation plan will be drafted in spring of 2022 by a federal writing team and released in September of 2022. So it will be drafted in April and May, and then there will be time for it to go through the agency processes of getting approved and should be released in September. At this time, after the implementation plan is released, the collaboration teams will develop their biennial work plans. So then the purple set of sections is all about the development of the implementation plan. And then the blue sections of the document of the diagram indicate the actual implementation of the plan. So we expect that this first 2-year plan will be implemented between October 2022 and August of 2024. During implementation, we want to note that this plan is not written in stone. There is space and flexibility to add additional objectives and deliverables as they emerge, both through input and ideas from external partners, as well as from requests by federal agencies. We recognize that research is not static and that new ideas and things may come up during the implementation of the plan. And then in fall of 2024, the priority area team leaders will produce a biennial report detailing the progress and highlighting the products that have come out of the Arctic Research Plan to date. The report will include evaluation based on the metrics of success and accomplishments related to the priority area goals and the foundational activities. So these biennial reports are called for in the Arctic Research Policy Act, but along with being required, they will also help the public, the research, and the policy communities understand the progress and obstacles toward achievement of the goals in the plan, as well as detail the responsiveness to the U.S. Arctic Research Commission's biennial goals report. So as we mentioned, these are biennial implementation plans. So in December of 2024, this process will begin again, and we will develop a second biennial implementation plan that will end with a final report planned for the end of 2026. And that final report will evaluate the outcomes of this research plan and communicate the scientific advances that IARPC has made. And I think that's all I have on this slide.
Thanks, Sally. And thanks for all of your efforts in helping us to hammer out a pathway for implementation. Now we're going to turn it over to Meredith LaValle, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about how we're communicating, how we can improve our communications into the future. Meredith, you mind starting out and talk a little bit about why this is important to you, please?
Sure, thanks, Larry. So my name is Meredith, and like Larry mentioned earlier, I am a project analyst for the IARPC Secretariat, and I moved to Anchorage, Alaska 4 years ago. So I'm currently living and working on the Dena'ina homelands, and I care a lot about Alaska and the Arctic. I love it here, and I love the complexity and the interconnectedness and the recognition of that from the people who live here. And for me, this work is really important. It's an important part of developing and improving current processes for priority setting and decision making. And it's hard work, and it's necessary work to discuss what is the most important research issues to address collectively. So it's always interesting, and I enjoy this process, even though it can be complicated and challenging sometimes. So I'm going to discuss a little bit about how implementation works currently and will work in the future. So I have on the screen here the IARPC website homepage, and IARPC runs this website, IARPC Collaborations, and it serves as a platform for coordinating federal government program managers and scientists and the non-federal research community and other partners in an effort to accelerate the pace of Arctic research and to achieve priority area goals. So if you're not already a member, you can sign up at iarpiccollaborations.org. And on the website, anyone can contribute to implementing the plan. So next slide. IARPC Collaborations will be the primary management coordinating structure to implement the next plan as well. It includes functions where objectives, deliverables, or performance elements, as they are right now, can be captured and tracked. So what you're seeing here is an example of performance element tracking from the current plan. and where a collaboration team is able to track the progress towards the goals that were outlined under the current Arctic Research Plan. So on the next slide, you'll see that the website serves as both a community forum and a project management and tracking system through posting events, documents, recordings of meetings and webinars. Website staff and users organize team meetings and deliver information to team members. So this is an example of the current tool we use to track progress on the Arctic Research Plan. And users are able to upload actions. You can comment on any of the performance elements to suggest an action, and the new plan will have a similar tracking tool. Those who want to participate in implementation can post achievements towards the goals outlined in this plan, and the deliverables that will be described in the biennial implementation plans as well. So kind of an open way to communicate on progress that's being made together collectively. Okay, and the next slide. So within the biennial implementation plan, there are specific metrics that will be developed as appropriate to the goals and deliverables for each priority area, metrics of success. And deliverables may include tools, reports, articles, workshops, outreach or education events, webinars, and products tailored to decision makers or other end users. So a lot of things could be a deliverable. And general metrics of success should include biennial implementation plan development for each priority area, and will also be used to assess progress every 2 years and at the end of the 5-year plan. So these are the different questions that we are asking to measure success on the plan. So I'll just read through them quickly here. How do achievements present convergence among activities within each priority area and ensure midterm goals, metrics, and completed activities build towards overarching priority area goals? How do the outcomes and deliverables advance one or more policy drivers? How do the outcomes and deliverables meet the mission and interest of more than one federal agency? How are the outcomes and deliverables used by decision makers in the Arctic, in Alaska, and throughout the nation? And then the next slide has the last 4 criteria here. How do the priority area collaboration teams engage external partners? How do the foundational activities enhance? How have foundational activities enhanced and supported Arctic research and advanced progress towards priority area goals? How does IARPC facilitate the research and reporting activities of each priority area? And finally, how do achievements demonstrate accelerated progress, improved efficiency, and result in more efficient use of government resources? So the IARPC staff group and IARPC principals will provide oversight on the success of these IARPC efforts. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Larry.
Thanks, Meredith. And let's see. So we are at the point where now we're, as I mentioned several times, we're accepting public comments that ends on June 11th. And we must ask that your comments be submitted through the Federal Register notice. And I'll give you some information about that in a minute. But we're specifically looking for comments on priority area goals, justifications, potential partners, and on the foundational activities. And also on the implementations, that's where we're really working on right now. So we have guidance on implementation and metrics that would be very helpful. We appreciate and really welcome all of your thoughts on any component of the plan. So next, please. So we've set up a variety of methods for you to comment on the draft plan. You can submit your comments through the Federal Register notice on the Federal Register website, or you can email comments to iarpicplan@nsf.gov. You can leave a voicemail at 703-783-1658, or 888-657-7759. It's a toll-free number. Note that these are limited to 5 minutes, but you can call back as many times as you want to. And you can also send hard copy comments to Roberto Delgado at the Office of Polar Programs at NSF at 2415 Eisenhower Avenue in Alexandria, Virginia at 22314. I see Roberto is with us today, and thank you very much for helping us out, Roberto, and taking those comments. Next slide, please. So after the comment period closes, the federal agency staff will review and consider the input and revise the plan as appropriate. By law, revisions have to be done specifically by federal agency employees. We will make all the comments submitted through the Federal Register notice and their responses publicly available with attribution on the IARPC Collaborations website. So the questions and comments made in this meeting will not be part of the public record. As I mentioned, only comments submitted through the mechanisms outlined in the Federal Register notice will be formally included in the public record. And our goal is, as we've said multiple times, is to have the plan released at the end of this year. So our final slide, please. Let's see, so you can find more information about the plan development process at tinyurl.com/arcticplan. The plan itself is downloadable at tinyurl.com/arcticplan download. And these links all go to the IARPC Collaborations website. If you have specific questions, please contact the Plan Development Director, Nakush Carlo, at nakush.carlo@gmail.com, or the Indigenous Engagement Specialist. Well, actually, Danielle was with us for quite a while. Danielle is not with us anymore. Today was her last day. Or the IARPC Secretariat at plan@iarpccollaborations.org. And with that, we will stop and open it up for discussion and conversation. So thanks everybody for your attention.
Thanks to all of our presenters, and just want to let folks know that you can put questions in the chat and can also raise your hand by using the reactions button at the bottom of your screen, or you can hit *9 if you're on the phone. Sorry, Meredith, did I cut you off?
Nope, that was helpful. Thanks, Liz. I have a question that came in from the chat. Who and when will who will formulate the performance elements and when in the next plan?
So we're changing the plan, the approach slightly, in that we're not going to have performance elements. We will still have metrics, we will still have deliverables, but we're not focusing on the performance elements nearly as much as we did in the current plan. This plan is much different. The reason for that is to make it more manageable for the collaboration teams to accomplish what we need to accomplish without so much effort on checking boxes, but rather on producing the products we need and accomplishing the goals that we're after. So we won't be using performance elements in this plan.
However, if I could comment also, Larry, we will be having, as you mentioned, objectives and deliverables. They just won't be nearly as many or as detailed as the performance elements. And those will be developed by the federal drafting teams in the spring timeline, April and May, if you look at our diagram that had the sort of the arrows on it.
Other comments or concerns, suggestions?
Yes, we have one question in the chat from Delhaid. Could you give one example? Can you give one example if tribes or rural communities thought that broadband is a priority? How does that get through the process to become reality?
So I give lots of examples of how, yeah, it's been difficult as far as the rural communities engaging through their internet. And I have some really exciting news that I can't break right now, but I know the Vice President Harris is going to make a really important announcement in the coming week. And so I'll leave it at that. But I'd love to come back to this and talk about it some more, but we'll leave it to Vice President Harris at this point.
Do you want to maybe comment, Larry, on the more general process by which the tribes could indicate things that are priorities to them?
Oh, absolutely. So we did solicit input from the indigenous tribes through the rural communities substantively last year. And then we had quite a few indigenous representatives who attended the September workshop. And I think and I hope that we adequately incorporated their concerns. We've tried to do that very much as far as through the engagement of their contributions and their concerns with indigenous-led research and co-production of knowledge was completely drove the reason for including that as a foundational activity in the next Arctic research plan. And I think that will be completely integrated in all the federal research going into the future. So I think that was, I'm very optimistic that would be a successful step to really improving co-production of knowledge and indigenous-led research in the future. Nikush, do you want to add anything more to that?
Yeah, I just, thanks for sharing that. I think it's a really good example in pointing to the co-production of knowledge and indigenous-led research piece of the current draft plan. I think the other thing I just add briefly is that IARPC focuses on research. And so tying everything, tying priorities back to research is really critical. So we're not doing everything that could possibly happen within the Arctic, but that really specific focus on research and how the federal government can contribute and work with others. And I think that's also something that as we get into we're in a little bit of a transition here, right, with a different sort of structure and plan, and we're transitioning to doing things a little bit differently and implementing things a little bit differently, but really having an eye towards how can we work together, how can we bring the many different types of knowledge and expertise that are in the Arctic, including what those what priorities are from rural communities, how to continue to have a good and open lines of communication to be able to together think about how that is implemented within the context of the 4 priority areas in the Arctic Research Plan.
Igor, I see you have your hand raised. Go ahead. You'll need to unmute yourself.
I unmuted myself. Okay, so I understand that it is open, priority areas are open to everybody. And in a slide, Sally demonstrated its federal agency, external partners, collaboration, and foundational team. If I am none of those 3 or 4 entities, I believe that the only option to me is to participate in collaboration team. And now I extend the same my concern that I already presented to Larry. It is concern about gap in our studies, terrestrial snow cover. You can name it challenge if you prefer. And let us agree that yes, it is not explicitly presented, but there are scientists who make studies of snow cover. No doubt about it. I'm not going to dispute it. But there are 8 or maybe now 9 collaboration teams. None of those teams includes studying snow. And no IARPC activities for previous 5 years considered snow per se. So everybody can participate in priority areas. But if somebody participate in priority areas, it will not help because no collaboration team includes snow at the moment. And I'm afraid will not include for 5-7 next years. Well, there is option of self-formed team as a solution of the problem. But from my standpoint, and I don't need to try to convince people now, snow cover, terrestrial snow cover, plays much more important role than even sea ice. We can dispute, but it's at least comparable. So there is my concern, and everybody can put the comments to different sources of providing concern. But what is the desirable way to include terrestrial snow cover in communication, in consideration? Because currently it's not part of any of 8 of 9 collaboration teams. There is question to Larry, and then I asked the same question several months ago. He said it will be included in consideration via implementation. But I still don't really understand. It could be considered if collaboration team raised that issue, but they are not considered the terrestrial snow cover at the moment. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll give you the same answer in that. So my perspective is that it is included. So I agree with you as far as, and everybody else will too, as far as how important.
In what team? In what team is it included?
Let me finish first. Well, maybe not. Maybe the teams are not actively working on it right now. I don't know about that. But let me finish first. So you're right. You're absolutely right. The terrestrial snow cover is hugely important because, you know, as it disappears in the spring, or as we have a longer growing season, you know, we have a much longer period when the albedo is 20% instead of 80%. And so, so we absorb so much more solar radiation. And so it has an impact on the surface energy balance. It has an impact on permafrost. It has an impact on vegetation. And even in midwinter, as far as the depth of snow, it will include the distribution of shrubs, which includes winter albedo. So it's hugely important. It's so important that it is a component, a very important component of Arctic system interactions. So the Arctic system interactions, each of these priority areas only received in the strategy only had 2.5 pages to make their points. And so there's no way that they could possibly include a description of all the important processes. And so it's a high level strategy. It's a high level broad strategy where the researchers have the opportunity now, such as yourself, the researchers have the opportunity to submit proposals to NSF or to NOAA or to Department of Energy, and to say that this is an important component of Arctic system interactions. You can't understand Arctic system interactions unless we consider snow cover. And that's the justification. It's described here in this plan. That's the justification to fund this research. And so, although it's not explicitly named, that reference, that component that is so critically important, it gives you the justification to do the work as part of the Arctic system interactions. And as far as whether there is an IARPC collaborations team working on that right now, there are teams that are working on developing the data sets that improve the modeling capability, and that distribution of albedo across the on planetary scales or even regional scales is critically important to be able to enable models to accurately predict what's happening now or project what's going to happen in the future. There's no doubt that it's critically important. And all I'm saying is that snow cover doesn't need to be explicitly referenced to be included in the work. But we could discuss it more.
Well, I understand, but it is to some degree a vicious circle that Sally described implementation that everybody can participate, and collaboration teams participate. But there is no collaboration team that include snow cover at the moment. So how everyone could contribute to that priority areas without collaboration teams?
But I don't think we need a collaboration team on snow cover to participate. I think the snow cover researchers, snow researchers could be actively engaged in the modeling components. Snow cover could be actively a component, and it is an important component of data sets that are needed to describe evolution of the ecosystems. And so there are many places where snow is critically important and has to be involved, has to be incorporated into the work that we're doing, even if it's not explicitly lifted up as the priority. So that's why we're using a broad scale strategy, a very general strategy, so that we can include a lot of the components under it without actually actively naming them. All we have to do is justify the reason for their importance in the proposals that are going forward. And I don't think that's going to be difficult to do.
Okay, I understand. Just small notes. The terrestrial ecosystem modeling or terrestrial studies, they do not consider snow almost at all. It is surprising. Terrestrial ecosystem do not consider influence of snow. I've visited several ecosystem conferences. Everybody agrees it's an important part, but it's not included for years. Okay, it's time to finish the discussion. I submit that idea, and I don't know how it could be implemented without any collaboration team taking into account a lot of different aspects of the problem.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Larry,
Larry, this is Sarah. Can I interject a thought here? Thanks. So thanks, Igor. This is Sarah Bowden from the Secretariat. So one of the nice features about the new plan is that it does permit a lot more flexibility for issues as they arise to be integrated into the plan as we become aware of changing ecosystem dynamics or physical processes, so that IARPC will be in a position to be much more agile than it has in the past, with all these performance elements that needed to be identified and then acted upon. And you are absolutely correct. Snow is not a big component of any of the collaboration teams currently. But in the new structure, the collaboration teams are going to be helping to implement the priority areas, but they are also going to have a great deal of flexibility to address issues that their community thinks is important. And, we created the physical oceanography team because that community came together and said they needed a space, and they are one of our most active and vibrant teams. And I see no reason why the same couldn't happen here, either under the terrestrial team or under the modeling team or under the data team, or maybe we need a cryosphere team. I don't know, but the new plan allows us to be more agile, to be able to respond to these kinds of concerns.
Thanks, Sarah. One thing I'd like to add to, just to make this discussion a little bit broader, is that, as I mentioned, it's a high-level strategy, and there are a lot of things that are not mentioned. And there are many processes, particularly with respect to Arctic system interactions, but in the other priority areas too. There are many important processes that are not explicitly called out. But just looking at Arctic system interactions, we don't talk about microbial decomposition. We don't talk about methane fluxes. We don't talk about the shift, the greening of the Arctic, or the shift from shrubs to tundra. Those are all really important. And this plan is broad enough to include that type of work. So it doesn't need to be explicitly mentioned to still be an important component and still be integrated into the work that's done. And so it's just because it's not mentioned does not mean that it's not important or that the work can't be done. And anyway, I'll open for further comments or suggestions.
Thank you. We're about 5 minutes from the top of the hour, so time for a couple more questions or comments if folks have them. So you can, again, put them in the chat or go ahead and raise your hand.
I'll just note again that this plan is very different, as we've said several times. This plan is very different than the previous two plans. And so it gives us a lot more flexibility to do work that has been ongoing in the past, is important, but hasn't necessarily been a part of the IARPC collaborations. And so we are trying to make a bigger tent where we can make greater achievements by getting people to work together. And I think Igor just brought up a great example of how we can do that. But there's other examples too, as far as, marine science. I think it's really important to better engage these microarrays. We haven't really discussed that, but I think that's really important. And there's a lot of really important work that needs to be done in the future, and that hopefully we can focus efforts and investments to accomplish that.
I see Jeff Curry has hand raised. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks. See if I can put my camera here. Yeah, I'm really optimistic about the deliverables and the implementation part of this plan, and specifically creating digestible deliverables for policymakers. I work at DOT, and so for me, actionable items and actionable research is really the goal. And I'm very optimistic about this new plan. Just wanted to share that.
Thanks, Jeff. And again, that's a great example of where we could benefit from your suggestions into the Federal Register notice, as far as what specific deliverables you think are important and that should be included in the implementation. So that's the type of guidance that we would benefit from.
As we near the top of the hour, do any of our speakers, Larry, Sally, Nikush, Meredith, do you have any final thoughts or things to share?
This is Nikush. I'll just quickly add and encourage everyone, if you do have comments, thoughts, things we need to consider, please get them into the Federal Register or the other mechanisms that are listed on the Federal Register. Leave us a voicemail, send us written comments. These are hugely helpful to the drafting teams. They will look at all of the input together and take that into consideration, make revisions on the plan. So I thank you very much for joining us today, and we look forward to connecting with you again in the future.
Thanks, Nikush. And I'll add just one last comment too, in that I want to note that, so I've been in this role for a year now, but IARPC collaboration's been around for about 10 years now, and they've been phenomenally successful because IARPC collaborations has brought people together to focus on common problems, and the achievements that can be accomplished when people are focusing their efforts and collaborating together are just astounding. And if you look at the investments and compared to the investments made in resources compared to the outcomes, it's really amazing. IARPC collaborations have really been punching way over their weight just because people are working together so well. And that's really what we want to do. We want to take that model that's been established in the past and expand it to these other important priority areas. And hopefully in another 10 years, we can see, again, more and more remarkable achievements. And that's where all of you come in. So hopefully you can all remain engaged in IARPC collaborations, and we'll see continued progress. So thanks to everybody for contributing and helping us move this plan forward. Thanks to the Secretariat for helping organizing this webinar. This is our final webinar. I think this is the sixth webinar we've had, and I think it's been great discussions. So I appreciate everybody and helping us put these together. So thanks all.